Hey, Desert Hot Springs, welcome. It's kind of weird times, isn't it? COVID's here, and how do you get out in a campaign season and meet and greet? You can't. So thank you guys for giving. So my wife's here with me. I'm going to introduce her first. So Victoria's here with me today to help me through this. So being live on Facebook and YouTube, we wanted to make sure that we got your questions answered. So she's going to be reaching back and forth on her phone, and she's going to be looking at questions that you might have. So if you do have questions, you can type them in there. I first, again, want to introduce my beautiful wife, Victoria, who's here with us today to help us out.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining us tonight. I hope that we're able to get lots of questions and answers out to you guys and have some fun. Welcome to our home. I know it's crazy times, so I will be checking my Facebook. If you guys have questions, please throw them on there and we'll get those answered for you.
And if you're on YouTube, you can also punch in your questions and we'll get those also. I also want to thank Burke Media, who does all my stuff. They're here tonight to, we're social distancing far enough apart that we'll be safe and be able to get the message out. Again, as mayor of Desert Hot Springs, you have to run for the seat, but I wanted to tell you a little bit about the term limits and what the term is. So 2 years ago, when I ran for re-election for mayor, we put on the ballot, meaning the city council added to the ballot, two issues, and for you to choose as the constituents of Desert Hot Springs. Do you want to see your 2-year mayor turn to a 4-year mayor, or did you want to see your mayor become a rotating mayor? And what that means is that the senior-most person on the city council would then be mayor. Half the cities in the Coachella Valley do it, half the cities are elected mayor. And you overwhelmingly supported a 4-year mayor, close to 70% of the vote. And so with that, if I'm fortunate enough to be reelected to the city council this November, I will serve 4 years for you. There is a 2-year, 2-term limit on that. That means the next, any mayor that's elected will be like the President of the United States. They can only run for 2 terms. That was a caveat to having the 4-year mayor put on the ballot by council members. So with that said, I will have at least 1 more term with you and then make a decision on a final term if that's what I choose to do. But tonight we wanted to go over a little bit of what my strategy will be and what my points will be here over the next campaign. I was driving down the road one day and I'm looking at other signs, I'm looking at things that are going on in our community, and I really came up with a slogan that I thought was really proper for this campaign. A realistic vision with real results. I'm always that person. I grew up here in Desert Hot Springs. My wife grew up here in Desert Hot Springs. We always say, you know, we want to see someone make a difference. And I know there's a lot of people out there that have different opinions on how you make a difference, but being at this level as the mayor of Desert Hot Springs and being on the city council for 13 years, I've been very fortunate to be able to, I can stop my truck and get out and feel and touch the things that we've made a difference at. And I've been very fortunate to work with some good city councils and really make it through some hard times to put us on a path to when I became mayor in 2015. And to see the results from where we took our vision to today, which is going to finish my 2nd term at the end of this year, has been an amazing feeling for me. I'm 1 vote on the city council, but one of the things I prided myself on when I became the mayor of Desert Hot Springs was unifying the city council. Before that, there was some meetings we would go on for 8-9 hours. There was bickering and arguing, and it just wasn't healthy for our community. We don't have to like the same vision. We don't have to, as 5 council members, have the same path to get where we want, but almost all the time we want to get to where that same place. And so having healthy debate on that, on how the policy is going to be set, on how we're going to get there, is important. Now, I'm not saying I'm perfect, because there's times when it gets late and we all get a little short and we might say a few things we don't want to say. But for the most part, I can say that I'm very proud of our city council, the last 2 city councils that I've been mayor for, and how we've what we've accomplished. So I want to go over a little bit with you tonight. My 4 points haven't changed much from the last campaign, but I've changed the bullet points within them. I think they're important to instill in what we're doing here in Desert Hot Springs and to continue down that path. So the first thing that I really want to talk about is our fiscal stability. Desert Hot Springs was at a point in time back when the recession was really bad, 2011, 12, 13, where there wasn't much money in the bank. There was major cuts being made to our staff. programs. We didn't know where we were going to get enough money to even have the next fiscal year start. When you start a fiscal year in July 1, you've got to have a little over $2 million before your tax revenue sets in after the first quarter of the next fiscal year. So with that, we made some proper cuts, difficult ones. There was even talk about our police department going away, and we were looking at the sheriff, and that just wasn't feasible at all. So all these things were being looked at, and it was not great times for us financially. But we worked a plan. We utilized a financial consultant that's been very important at Desert Hot Springs. We used our staff to make sure we set that plan, implemented those policies, and we worked our way out of that. We went from having little to nothing in the bank to having around $11 million in reserves today. And there's a different, $11 million in fund balance. So you have your reserves, you have other accounts, all that put together, that helps protect the city. And why we talk about that a lot is most cities strive to have about 20 million, about your budget. Our budget each year is approximately $20 million. And you work to strive to have that in the bank, so if the economy goes back to where it was in 2010, 11, 12, you can be safe enough to be able to keep your programming going, keep the staffing levels where they need to be, and move forward from there. So this is what we really want to make sure that we continue to strengthen those policies. And I believe as mayor I could do that. I can make sure these policies are strengthened. I can make sure that we continue to have that institutional knowledge that we need at the dais to make sure that if a city manager retires and a new city manager comes in, or if a finance director retires and a new one comes in, that these policies are still moving forward and that we still continue to keep our city healthy. Balanced budgets are always important, and we've gone to a two-year budget. And what that does for us is it gets us to be able to project out, see the future, where we stand. We make projections with our financial consultants and really find where we're going to be in 2 years. And we want to continue to do that in our budgeting. And Desert Hot Springs now has an A+ rating with Standards & Poor's. This is how we were able to bond out for a new city hall. We were able to refinance bonds. We were able to take that money, pay down debt, and finance a city hall. This has been a fantastic opportunity from us from a city that didn't have any rating at one point. My next bullet point is going to be community programming. And what that means is that we got to really continue to focus on our inner community. Building parks. We are underserved in parkland in Desert Hot Springs. We have parks on the shelf, ready to go, meaning they're unplanned, but we got to find funding for those. Now, the planning is the first stage always. You got to have a plan, define grant funding, and that's where we're at today. We've planned for a new park at where the city yard is, the Hacienda in Choya. This is a new park that will have a new large junior Little League field. Right now, Little League has to rent the big fields at the high school, and it'll have a football field for junior All-American or whatever the sports will be for football. Mission Springs Park is overutilized because there's not enough space for our youth in our community. We also have other areas where we need to build parks. The Rancho del Oro area, we've had a park slated there for 20 years. So we have to continue to look at our areas in our community and see where these parks need to go. Skyborn has a park slated for when they can continue their construction and build out there. So we have to find funding for these and get these built. Our senior center is exploding. We've partnered with the Mizell Senior Center in Palm Springs to bring the proper services to our community, and we believe the senior center is thriving. The city council will be moving from the Carl May Center, which is next to the senior center, into a new city council chambers at the new city hall. When we do that, we're also building a brand new library. I say we, the county's actually stepped up to do that for us here in Desert Hot Springs. And you can see the construction at Park Lane and Palm Drive across from the new grocery outlet. That will hopefully be open within the next 6 to 10 months. With that said, there'll be an open building library and the Carl May will be open. We need to expand our senior services in the center there, and I want to push a senior center campus in that area. And at-risk youth are so important that we continue to focus on that, especially with COVID right now and not having these services, kids not being able to go to school. What are they doing with their time? And we have to make sure that in the future we provide programming for that. We've tried to bring PAL back. We've tried to bring other at-risk organizations into our community. We need to accomplish that. We need to stop talking about it, and we need to accomplish it. And that's going to be one of my goals for the next 4 years. food and homelessness programs, we partnered with Food Now, St. Elizabeth's Church, Word of Life Church, and the Senior Center at the beginning of COVID to really make sure that we knew with the explosion of unemployment and people needing food, that there would be an outlet for them. I started having weekly meetings with these organizations to see how we can help as a city to make sure that they have the resources they need. For example, Food Now serves approximately 350 families a week. They went from 350 families a week to 500 families a week. And that is huge, a jump. And not only that, is that the way their programming worked is that they would be able to send their numbers to Find Food Bank, but they were 2 weeks behind, so they were lagging in the food that they needed to have in there to be able to serve the people. So we partnered with them. They needed more help, so we brought in the faith-based organizations. We brought in the Rotary Club of Desert Hot Springs. We actually, Maria Lopez is in the community now starting another program. There's a lot of good going on in our community, and bringing all these individuals together. We've been having bi-weekly Zoom meetings to make sure everybody's on the same page and whatever help needs to happen. The Rotary Club partnered with the Senior Center. Jessica Gilbert was wonderful at that. She actually went out and started serving seniors that were shut-ins and make sure they had food dropped off at their house. The Rotary Club then combined together to help fill Food Now's need, because a lot of seasonal people were leaving early because of COVID, and the Rotary Club stepped in to help serve that food, and they were going to shut-ins also and making sure they got food. So these are the great things that happen in our community, but we need to keep those programs strengthened. And we're really happy to see that we at Desert Hot Springs have been putting in over $100,000 a year into a large program within the Coachella Valley to help with the homeless needs of our community. Working with Path of Life Ministries and working with the Coachella Valley Association of Governments, they are actually working closely with Martha's Village. And Martha's Village is going to be teaming up with Food Now, and they're going to be having services here in Desert Hot Springs where if people are homeless, they can actually walk into a one-stop shop. They can get food, they can get the services they need. If they need mental health services, if they need services such as people needing to be able to get a driver's license or be able to get mail, those types of things. So we're really happy with that. That should be, we should be having more announcements on that real soon. Career training, we've tried this over and over again since I've been on the city council to bring training to Desert Hot Springs, and it always seems to fail, not because of the organizations, but because of the use of that organization. So I really want to bring together a committee of people that would really focus on what does that mean for our city. We've partnered with COD. COD has a small satellite campus here at the Winslow Educational Center. We have a bus that goes directly to COD and back. What else can we do to bring career training to Desert Hot Springs? And I think we really need to focus on that. Economic development, I really want to take the next steps. I was told a while back it's hard to bring visitors and friends and guests to our community because of what our community looked like when you drove up Palm Drive. I asked the city manager when he was hired to really focus on image of Desert Hot Springs, and I really believe that we're doing a better job. Is it perfect yet? No, but it sure is getting there quickly. If you drive up Palm Drive and you see the medians, you see the new signs, you see things that make your town proud, but it's not completely there yet. And what I want to focus on in the next 4 years is a couple things. One is I want to make sure businesses have the resources they need to clean themselves up. It is the image of our city when your business doesn't look the way it should. I want to go into neighborhoods and I want to clean our neighborhoods up. It is sad that the taxpayers have to pay over $250,000 a year, $250,000 a year for a big truck from Desert Valley Disposal to drive around and pick up trash because they dump it on the side of the road. They dump it next to dumpsters. They dump it in deserts. And that is sad that we have to spend that much money, but we do. And every time we pick up a load, there's another load to be picked up. And I just don't understand it, because you, as a taxpayer in town, can put stuff at your curb 4 times a year, plus you have 4 big bulky pickups a year. So 8 times a year, you can have stuff at your curb. And so there's opportunities here to get in these neighborhoods, educate, and be able to get these cleaned up. We need to attract more retail. We're trying. We've actually gone away from a consultant that we had. We used to have a consultant that would come in. They had multiple cities under their belt. They would say, yeah, you deserve this and this and this, but they would go and talk to these businesses, and then if they were like, I don't know about that city, they would just give them another city on their list, and they would go there. We hired an economic development manager in Desert Hot Springs. Our city manager decided he was going to bring it in-house, and he did. And that person is focused just for Desert Hot Springs. She is going out, Denise. She is talking to businesses, organizations. What can our city strive with? You guys just saw the grocery outlet open. It is just packed every day. We've talked about these businesses. We've talked about, and what's great about grocery outlets, I really got to give them a plug. They came in, they're a local family. It's a franchise. They bought a house here. They're hiring 100% Desert Hot Springs residents. And I just want to say thank you to them. They're doing a fantastic job. They're here in Desert Hot Springs. If you go to the store, it's got Desert Hot Springs all over it. They're very proud to be here. So please, utilize these businesses that really do come to Desert Hot Springs and are small businesses, and that's considered a small business. So, but we got to attract more retail. We all do. We all know. We want to sit-down restaurants. We want more shopping. 60 cents of every dollar 10 years ago was leaving the city to go be spent somewhere else, and that's got to stop because that's tax revenue to our community. So we're going to work on that. Support new jobs. We know that unemployment levels are very high right now because of COVID, but as soon as grocery outlet was getting ready to open, they had a ridiculous amount. I remember him when I was getting a tour. They told me it was a ridiculous amount of applications they had to go through. It was just astonishing on how many actually applied. And revamping our visitor serving. We're famous for hot water here in Desert Hot Springs, but what can we do more to get people to hike our trails, visit our spas, support our hoteliers, and spend money here in Desert Hot Springs? And that's got to be a focus. And at my next meet and greet, I'm bringing Robert Griffith in, who's on the city council. It was appointed to the city council, running for re-election. And he'll talk a lot more about visitor serving because that's his industry. He's from the hoteliers industry, and I really want him to focus on that. And then the last point is public safety. I have promised, as a 20-year volunteer fireman in our community, after leaving being a volunteer fireman and Desert Hot Springs Fire Station being one of the busiest in the county, I wanted to see fire stations built. They built a fire station in the Skyborn area, which is also utilized, but it's so far out at the borders of Desert Hot Springs that we still need 2 more fire stations in Desert Hot Springs. We need one on the east end of the city and one on the south end of the city. And so we've marked 2 locations. Now that's not possibly the final locations, but these are 2 locations of land that Desert Hot Springs owns. And we're working on grant funding and or capital money to be able to put together and build these fire stations. It's not cheap. It's going to cost us some money to build fire stations, and it costs us over $1 million a year to staff them. But there's steps that we can take. We can put maybe paramedics in there first and not a full fire engine. Maybe we have the second one built, or we have them both built to save money at the same time. There's options that Desert Hot Springs has, and once we make it through this COVID period and we're financially stable, we're going to have our consultants sit down and go through an exercise on what we can do to be able to get these fire stations up and running. You shouldn't have to wait 8 minutes for a paramedic to get to you if you live in the east end of the city. That is wrong. It's been bothering me since day one of being on the city council. It's just have to find a path to build this. And then one of our big focuses on when I first became mayor was pedestrian and bicycle safety. You now see the product of what we went out and found grant funding for through the state. You see Palm Drive from Camino Aventura to Dew Bunch Palms. That was the first phase completed. New lighting, new sidewalks, new roadways, new bicycle lanes. We had an unfortunate death in that area. Myself and former council member Annie Zavala went out to the community. We sat with the community. We talked about issues there. They wanted a stoplight for safety for the kids to cross. They wanted a median so people wouldn't pull out into traffic. We went back to the city council with those recommendations. The city council overwhelmingly supported to find the funding for that and to do that, and we did that for our community. The family had suggestions on making a safety corridor with signs. We took their suggestions and we made that safety corridor for Desert Hot Springs. And we went out and found more grant funding. We found another state transportation grant. We found grant funding from the Coachella Valley Associations of Governments, and that's what finished Palm Drive all the way up. And you now see the new lighting going in. You see the new light at Desert View and Palm. These lights are slowing traffic down in our community to make it so that people can be seen when crossing the road. It is still, we know it's their responsibility to cross safely, but there's nothing that can compare to a car driving at 25 to 30 to 50 miles an hour down Palm Drive. When it hits you, it doesn't matter who had the right of way. You're not going to win against a car. So these are the safety measures that we've taken, and we've received another state transportation grant that will be implemented in the next year to 18 months on Hacienda to help with from, I believe, Foxdale all the way to West Drive, which will help with safety on there also for pedestrians and bicyclists. And then we really need to focus on our social programs when it comes to public safety. What are we doing to make sure that the social issues of our community are overseen and taken care of by the agencies that they need to be? When it comes to mental health, what are we doing in mental health? Is the county providing enough programming in our community to be able to combat mental health, and so on? So I just wanted to get those points out and really talk and really give you an opportunity to think about questions you might have for me as mayor of Desert Hot Springs, and maybe even suggestions. If anyone knows me, I've been told I'm a good listener. I will sit and listen to you. If you come to my office, I will sit and listen to you on the phone. I will take everything you say into consideration. You just can't implement everything. It's just not realistic. We had a council member come in a while back, and that person wanted to put streetlights in every neighborhood. And it's noble, and that's exactly what I think a lot of us want. But it's just not realistic, and sometimes because of the cost. But where do you start? And recommendations and those types of things are really important. How can you help in this campaign? If you want to support Scott Mattis, you can go to www.vote.scottmattis.com. That's my website. Endorse me. Put your endorsement out there. You can put in a little phrase, a little something about me. Burke Media will put it up on our website under endorsements, and we'd be happy to have that. Send the links to a friend. There's a lot of people out there today who just don't know they can vote. They just don't know who to vote for. And a lot of people just are living lives that they just can't pay a lot of attention to it. But when it gets down to election time, they know they're going to the poll. Well, this year they'll be going to the absentee ballot, and they want to know who to vote for. And if they're new to town or they just haven't been paying attention, get the message out there. With social media these days, it's very simple just to share stuff. Get people to register to vote. You can go to my website. On the top banner, you can actually get people. You can just press there and it goes straight to the Secretary of State's website, where all the rules on how to register, and you can register right there and how to do it. It's very simple. You can go on there, and within minutes, you can be registered to vote. Follow us on social media. We're on Facebook, obviously, YouTube, obviously. We're on Instagram and Twitter. So with that, you can follow us if you have social media, and I don't know how many people don't have social media these days, but that's a pretty easy way to follow us and see the updates. I know we're not going to always agree on everything. I have my views on some things. I try to keep an open mind on everything and give a path for everybody. If someone comes to me with reasonable request on a path to have the city council look at your request, I think it's a proper thing to do. I think that's what we're here to do. I might not agree with it. I might, during the debate, vote against it, but I might bring it forth so you have the opportunity to explain your case. And why I'm talking about this is I want you to understand that there are things, again, that we might not agree on, but for the most part, what is Desert Hot Springs doing well right now? Is it doing better than it was 5 years ago? Is it doing better than it was 10 years ago? And if so, I think you need to really realize on who you're voting for and what they stand for. And yard signs. I've just put in an order for 250 yard signs. They should be here soon, and we'll have volunteers that can actually deliver them to your home safely. We'll actually get your address. My volunteers will wear masks. They'll make sure that they either have gloves on or they're sanitizing their hands before they touch the signs, and they'll drop them off on your porch, and then you can decide how you want to put them up. They will be in English and Spanish, so the signs you can utilize either area, any age. So if you live in an area that you feel like your friends speak a lot more Spanish and would understand the signs better, then feel free to utilize that side. If you want to use both sides, put it sideways, however you want to do it. It's your option. And then you just have to email or you hit us up on social media or drop a line into our website on how many signs you want and your address, and we'll get them to you. Just a real quick COVID update for Desert Hot Springs. We do have a city council meeting on September 1st. There will be some COVID social distancing on how that's going to happen. We are going to come together and be live in the new council chambers. I just wanted to give you a heads up. That's September 1st. That's our next council meeting. The new city hall is being utilized by our staff. The staff is fully functioning, but they are staggering their shifts and how many people are in city hall to continue to do social distancing, and masks are warranted when you do come into city hall as you do any business in the state of California right now. With that said, I again want to announce that we'll be announcing soon the next date of these meet and greets. We'll be focusing a little more on certain areas of my campaign, and I'll be introducing Robert Griffith, who's running for re-election. He was appointed to the city council and will be running for election for city council, and give him some time to talk about his platform and where he's going. With that, I think it's important to keep him on the team. With that said, we're going to move to Q&A, so I can stop babbling here. I probably went on longer than I usually do, or they wanted me to, but I'm going to open it up, and we're going to be doing Q&A. So Victoria has some questions that have actually been sent through our social media, and she's going to ask those to me, and I'll give the answers to those.
Yeah, so I was watching the clock and I almost went like this. Like, let's wrap this up. Let's get to the question.
You never give a politician a mic. Come on.
Do you want to grab some water before we start?
Thanks.
Okay. All right, so here's our first question. And it is from Nancy P. She says, will Desert Hot Springs planning allow for small land purchases, 1/4 of an acre, so that a tiny house can be built 1,000 square feet or less on the parcel? The tiny house movement is an option for young people and retirees.
So this has been talked about quite a bit at the city council level in time. We just updated our general plan, and we're working with the state of California on the new building codes that have been adopted. There's measures to produce lots like that. And so if we do have a builder that is interested in that, there is a path to do that. I don't know of any builders yet that have come to us to do that. But if you do know of builders and developers that are interested in that platform with the tiny homes, we'd be happy to sit down with them, get them in touch with our community development department, and give them a path to that project.
Perfect. Okay. Next question is from, I'm so sorry if I butcher your name, Sean Miguel. I know he's one of your greatest supporters, so I apologize if I did not say that correctly. So his question is, could you please explain the ridiculous 911 system we have in place here in DHS, and how can we get one of our own? It's a waste of time when we call and they have us ask the same questions twice. One is normally in a state of light shock when calling 911. Other than that, though, you're doing a grand job, Mr. Mayor. You make me proud to live in DHS.
Well, thank you for the question. This is a touchy subject when it comes to 911 system. We had our own 911 system at one point, Desert Hot Springs, but because of finances, we had to contract it out. Do we get the best services? I think there is times when we don't get the best service, but I also want to be sensitive because there's a lot of great essential workers out there, and 911 operators are great servants to the essential services that we need. Can we do better? Yes. Our city manager is a retired police chief that has gone through his exercise before, and him and I have had lots of conversations along with our police chief and former police chief on our 911 system. There is a path that if you have a problem with our 911 system, please don't hesitate to let us know that you had a problem with us, because our police chief can go back and find answers and make recommendations to our contractors on how they handle those situations. But with that said, one of the goals of our city manager is to bring that back in the house eventually. There is grant funding to produce that. We need space, and we're working on that right now. Once that space is had, we're looking at hiring the 911 operators, but it will be, I believe it's 9 that you have to have on staff to be able to cover all the shifts and vacations and everything else. So that is a big hit to our budget when it comes to personnel. So we have to be able to balance that and see where the contract's at right now and be able to balance that. So we are working on that. I would hope to see the system up soon, meaning sometime in the next maybe 12 to 24 months.
Okay. Annie has a question. Hers is, will there be a debate between those running for city council? I don't know any of their stances or who is even running besides Jessica.
Annie? Annie, thank you for that question. I don't know. Usually at this time we're already scheduled for debates, we're scheduled for meet and greets, it's just weird times right now, having to run your election without being able to go out and shake hands and talk to people, and these meet and greets at homes where you'll have anywhere from 5 to 10 people, sometimes 20. You'll have associations that will put on meet and greets and maybe debates. But at this time, I know like chambers of commerce and associations are really trying to figure out, is there a way to do it virtually? But I have not been invited to any at this time. I don't know if there will be. There's multiple organizations that do endorsements. The Desert Sun always does its editorial board and gives their endorsement. So I would foresee those happening. So all the city council and the mayor candidates are interviewed by the Desert Sun. The major associations will most likely do endorsements and do interviews, but at this time to actually see a debate, I'm not sure if that's going to happen. It really needs to be put on by a third party, a party that wants to be able to mediate it. But again, with this day and age, we might have to put out Burke Media's cards and see what they can do for people. So, but if there is one, I will participate, yes.
Okay. Pamela has a question in regards to a homeless issue that's been going on Camino Campanero. She wants to know what are the steps that are being taken for that, and she says that she's been hearing that it is a county issue and she's tired of hearing that.
Yeah, so where she's stating she lives is she lives within the county area, just outside of Desert Hot Springs, but those are considered Desert Hot Springs because they have Desert Hot Springs addresses, and I get the frustration on that. When you call 911, you get the sheriff's department, you don't get the police department unless it's a priority 1 call. When you call the fire department, you get the county fire department, which is also in Desert Hot Springs, so you get mixed up. How does it work? It's very confusing a lot of times. There is a county supervisor, which is like a council member for your area, that is District 4, Manuel Perez, that can help with those issues. But you're talking about the border, which is in Desert Hot Springs, but you're outside Desert Hot Springs, so it affects you. I understand that. We, again, as at the beginning of the conversation, we're putting over $100,000 into homeless services. If you have homeless camps that are in your area, don't hesitate to call the City of Desert Hot Springs at 760-329-6411 and report those homeless camps. Homeless individuals have rights. They don't have rights to vandalize, cause fires, do those types of things, but they have rights when they do put down a tent or they sleep in a car. And we have to make sure we don't violate those rights by law. It doesn't mean that we don't have measures to make them move on if they are causing a nuisance. A lot of times it's private property and we have to work with the property owner. Our code compliance department is very versed in this. And again, please don't hesitate to call. We will do what we can. I can't stop a homeless person from being homeless. What we can do is provide more services, which we're trying to do. Mental health, substance abuse, services to get to food programs, and services to get them housing. And homeless is very widespread. It's from mom and dad lost their job, or one of them lost their jobs and they lost their house and they had to move in with their mom and dad, grandparents, and the kids are living there. They're considered homeless. All the way to the homeless person you see on the street that has an addiction issue or a mental health issue, or just decides in life that they don't want to live in a house anymore. So there's all that variety, and we have to try to balance that, and it's not always easy. And there's these camps that do move around. And so you have to work with the property owners, and a lot of times these large property owners are absentee and trying to get a hold of them, and there's a lot of methods. And I'm not trying to make excuses, but I'm telling you it's not an easy process. But don't hesitate to call the City of Desert Hot Springs, report where they're at, and we will do what we can to get out there and mitigate that.
Okay, next question is from George. He says, I would like to hear about the future of diversity in Desert Hot Springs. It looks like our LGBTQ group is struggling. What can the city do to make sure it thrives? Does DHS have funding and also the support of the mayor and the city council to support and promote this group?
George, thank you for the question. Some of my biggest supporters are from the LGBTQ community, and I really appreciate them. Some of the biggest and most fun events we have in Desert Hot Springs is the Pride Festival each year. I think it's important that we continue to support that community, and why I say that community is that they're taxpayers. constituents of this community, voters, and people that put a lot of heart into our community. I'll tell you right now, the Pride Festival are some of the hardest working volunteers in our community when they come out to do that. But they're also individuals that own businesses in our community. So we have to continue to do that. So you've got the support of the mayor, absolutely. We had a really thriving LGBT community for a while, and then I think it's like most organizations and most groups, it goes in peaks and valleys. And it's just how do you bring more people together to get the things done that you want to. But I want to say our police department held a forum for our LGBT community this last year. We've supported, the city of Desert Hot Springs has supported every year of the Pride Festival. If you see the new lighting at Palm Drive and when you get off of I-10, each Pride month, we make sure that it's lit up with the proper colors. So I think you have a lot of support from your city staff and your community here when it comes to that group of people, yes.
Okay. Annie just actually sent in another comment on our Facebook.
Great.
Annie's the one who asked in regards to who's running for city council. So she wanted to know, do you have a list of names that you can give her?
So right now so we're still in the filing period. So how does it happen? It starts I believe it started 2 weeks ago, maybe 3 weeks ago. Dates are going by so fast now. If you decide you want to run for city council or mayor's seat, and you make an appointment with the city clerk, you do what they call pool of papers. There's a book with all the directions in it, what has to be filled out, how many signatures you need to get, all the process that you need to file, the proper paperwork with the state of California, how to form your committees, all that stuff. And then it has a certain period of time. Our period of time will end on August 6th. I think 6th because the city hall will be closed on the 7th.
Oh,
Right now, I know that there is, I believe, 7 candidates in the city council. That's not 7. 7 candidates in the city council race that have pulled papers. I know 1 has withdrawn, and 3 or 4 are qualified, and there's a few that are waiting to be qualified. I know that Jessica Gilbert, as you mentioned, is running for city council. I know that Robert Griffin's running for his seat, city council. I believe that Russell Betts is running for his re-election. And there's a couple other new names that I'm not familiar with that what we can do is I believe you can email the city clerk at the City of Desert Hot Springs, and you go to the City of Desert Hot Springs website, and you can go to the city clerk's office and ask them for a list, and they'll do it. Once it's finalized, you'll see it in media. But I don't believe they'll announce the list until everybody's qualified. So even myself, there's a new process where you get your signatures, you send it into the registrar's office, and they have to qualify the names on the signatures. And even mine's been dragging out, so we're still waiting to have me qualified, but I'm confident that will happen. So again, I have one challenger from the past, and I usually don't use my challenger's name, so please don't take offense to that. And again, from the city council's standpoint, the names that I named, and there's some new individuals that I don't know very well that have applied.
okay, perfect. So we have another homeless question
Yes.
from Marianne. She says, if trespassing is illegal, why can't we get homeless people off of empty lots and out of empty houses in our neighborhoods?
We can, and again, it comes down to reporting. A lot of times the city doesn't have the staffing to drive around and just look for homeless people and or make allegations that they're homeless on certain lots unless we know that they're living on a tent, just living in the lot. So we have to have these, a lot of times it's reported to our code compliance. Once it's reported to code compliance, they do the investigation to see if individuals are not living in the house, that shouldn't be living in the house, are homeless, and or if they've set up a tent camp or things that they shouldn't. As soon as they identify that, they get permission from the owner to remove those. They make phone calls, they write letters, whatever it takes from that property owner, but we've got to have the property owner on board with that because they're technically the ones that have to trespass the individuals. So there is a little bit of a process to it, but all you have to do is call the City Hall at 760-329-6411 and follow through with the operator to code compliance and report that you believe a homeless individual is living on this lot and they shouldn't be, and code compliance will prioritize that call and get out there and take care of that issue.
Okay, so the next question we have is from a Facebook watcher. And her question was, the community garden, is there anything going to be happening with that once the summer heat is over?
I hope so. So community gardens have been something that's been close to my heart since I started city council. I started in 2007, 2008. We tried to start some community gardens, and it really comes down to volunteers again. And it's always tough to keep it going. But the Rotary Club here at Desert Hot Springs had land donated to them, and they started the community garden across from the Vaughn Shopping Center. They've been working with our schools. They've been working with youth in our community. Again, with COVID, a lot of things have been set back. But I hope that garden continues to thrive, and I believe they'll continue to do that. If there's a group of people who want to get together and utilize other land that they know that they own or someone owns, we'd be happy to endorse that and get more community gardens in our community, but it does take a group of people to do that and volunteer.
Okay, so this is actually a question that we've gotten a few times previously. A few people are stating that they do not see the city app anymore, the graffiti trash removal app. They're wondering where it went and can we get it back?
Honestly, you stumped me on that one. I used it recently about a month ago, so I'm not sure.
I'm sorry to interrupt, but remember, I looked for it and I couldn't find it either. So I actually called them and said, I can't find it, and I have an iPhone, and you have to search for it a different way.
Okay. On iPhone users?
Yeah, like,
okay.
well, for anybody, but on iPhone, when I searched for City of DHS, it didn't come up.
I will get an answer to that. I'm sorry I don't have a direct answer to that. I typed in my Play Store, City of Desert Hot Springs, and it came up. That's how I downloaded it a long time ago. I will find out from our staff, and we'll post it on our Facebook on how to get to that app through your iPhone and or your Android.
Yeah. Wasn't it My DHS?
I think it is My DHS.
Yeah. So if you just type in DHS, nothing's going to populate. But if you type in My DHS in the App Store, it should pop up. If it doesn't, shoot me a message and I'll find an answer for you.
And we'll make sure we post it on all the social media outlets and make sure you have directions to that. But that's a great app, just to bring that up if you don't know what we're talking about. Desert Hot Springs is one of the very few cities that have an app that you can actually be driving down the road. You can see something like graffiti, waste on the side of the road. You can stop your car safely, get out, take a picture of it. You can even be anonymous. It takes an actual, like a Google map geolocation of where it's at and sends it to our code enforcement, graffiti guy, to our waste vendor, and those things will be taken care of quickly. If you haven't seen our graffiti guy, he lives here in town, works a contract for the city of Desert Hot Springs, and you don't see much graffiti in Desert Hot Springs because when it happens, it's gone pretty quickly.
Yeah. Okay, so the last question, unless I get any more come through, is from Christine. She said, how difficult in the times that we're living in right now would it be to set up a type of like city movie night? So get a big large screen, have cars come parked in like a drive-in, watch a movie, social distance. She said that, you know, it's kind of boring right now. So what are some things that we can offer?
This has been talked about a lot lately, and unfortunately our governor continues to change the rules on us a lot. So with that said, and I'm not saying it in a bad way, it could be because it needs to be, but it's tough. It really is tough for us to plan events. As you guys saw on the media, if you haven't seen the announcement, the 2021 Day Festival for February has been canceled because they have to start booking entertainment. The people that are going to be, it's already canceled. What are we looking at the end of this year with our city events? To be able to put a movie theater, make sure an outdoor movie venue is up, it does cost the city some money to be able to do that. Because we have to have we have to have a vendor do it. We have to pay for the utilization of the movie and all that stuff. What we have done in the past, I think it's great, is we've done dive-in movies at our pool during the summer. Unfortunately, we can't do that right now. But hopefully when COVID is over, we'll get back to doing that. But I think it's a great suggestion and something that we need to really think about in the future. I just don't know at this level if we're comfortable enough to have people do that yet. I know we can do it safely. I believe in our constituents. When it comes to COVID, we are one of the lowest working communities in the Coachella Valley when it comes to positive cases. I believe we're over 600 cases in Desert Hot Springs, but if you look at other working communities, which is most of them except for you could take out maybe some of the seasonal communities, sort of like Indian Wells or Rancho Mirage are more seasonal people. You look at their cases, there's a lot higher than ours. And we have to continue to protect that. Whether you believe about COVID or you believe to wear your face mask or not wear your face mask, that's not what we're trying to do right now. That's not a position that I can take. We as the city of Desert Hot Springs have to follow the governor's orders because of funding that could come down to the city of Desert Hot Springs in the future by the state. We've received over $6 million or close to $6 million in grant funding from the state and local agencies on traffic safety. And some of those funds haven't been completely given to us yet and could be taken away from us. So when it comes to your suggestion about putting a movie theater or some sort of movie in the park where you can park cars and stuff, we have to be very cautious and really look at that from a legal standpoint and from a safety standpoint. So noted. I will run it by our staff and see how we feel about it. We get stuck in this house, and we all do, and our kids are not going to school right now, and everybody gets a little kind of crazy, and we're just like you. We go to work, we come home. My wife here works from home, so she's here all the time with the kids. I'm the fortunate one. I get to go.
Save me.
I get to go to work each day and come back home, so I get a little bit of interaction outside the house. But her biggest interaction outside the house is shopping. For food or whatever our necessities are. But I take it under advisement, and there's been a lot of suggestions on things that we can do as a community to try to get out and be able to socialize, but be safe about it again. And we just have to monitor that.
So I've just been double checking to make sure that we do not have any other questions that have come in. So I do not see any other questions, but I have a question.
You do?
Yeah, so I thought it would be fun since you and I have both grown up in Desert Hot Springs.
Yeah.
You a little earlier than me.
Just a little.
but we have memories of being here since we were really small.
We do.
So I thought it would be really fun for me to give a memory of myself growing up here, and then I can ask what one is of yours.
Sure.
So I grew up here in Desert Hot Springs on 7th Street. That's where I spent most of my years. And my brother and I, who's two years younger than me, we would go to Wardman Park, which was just one street away on East Street. So we would cut through the desert, we'd go to Wardman, and this is before cell phones. Yeah, there was no cell phones when I was that age. So we would play until, whatever time on the playground, basketball, running around, whatever we wanted to do. And then we would wait, and we would hear my dad whistle. My dad could whistle so loud, and me and my brother, no matter what we were doing, would stop and look at each other like, did you hear that? And we knew it was time to go home. So we would cut through the desert, go home, and that's the DHS I grew up in, and I still am so passionate about this city, and our kids are growing up here, and I just continue to see so much improvement. I love our city. And I hope that all of you out there are able to make some of these awesome memories that you and your children can continue to have for many years and be able to reflect back on. So, your turn. What is a memory of you growing up?
I have 3 short memories that I wanted to share with you because it just all
Of course it has to be 3.
It started piling in. I'm like, no, I got to talk about that. No, talk about that. Which one do you do? This is easy. So when I was growing up here in Desert Hot Springs, we had a movie theater. It's where the Seventh-day Adventist Church is now, on Palm Drive next to south of the border. And it only played movies on Friday nights, Saturday matinees, and Saturday nights. But this was such a small community that everybody knew everybody. And if you wanted to go to an evening movie at 8 o'clock and you went with your friends and you walked home, if you weren't walking home, then I know people would come out of their house and I'm going to tell your grandma, I'm going to tell your mom, if you don't get home, doing mischief or whatever you do as a youth. But I remember going to that movie theater and seeing, I think we saw Grease, I saw Star Wars there.
I saw Batman.
You saw Batman there?
First Batman.
So it's just some great memories there. I also remember the BMX park here in town where Tedesco Park is now, and it was Royal Park at the time, and there's a skate park there now. But it used to be a BMX track, and I never was a BMX rider, but a lot of my friends were, and we used to go hang out there a couple times a week.
So Nick, my brother, was a BMX racer at that track, and I used to work in the snack bar selling hot chocolate.
And then Wardman Park is just so close to my heart. I played baseball there. We had so many events there. A lot of people don't realize that back when it was built, there was a very large donor in our community called Audrey Wardman, and she donated what was the Wardman Hall, which was a giant hall where all the way back to the parking lot, and all the organizations utilize that hall in Desert Hot Springs, the Lions Club, the Rotary Club. Every year we'd have a Halloween event there, and I have a picture of me winning a Halloween costume contest when I was like 5 or 6 years old there. So that park has a lot of memories to me, the Boys and Girls Club and everything else there.
So I always have memories that we're just at different times in our lives when we were
Not far apart.
I was in a fashion show beauty pageant at Wardman Hall when I was really small, and I won, which was awesome. And I went to the Boys and Girls Club at Wardman Park.
So a lot of great memories, and swimming in that pool there. It's just, you can go on and on with the memories in town. And I think what my point is that Desert Hot Springs is growing, and it continues to grow. The census is out now. You're being asked to answer those questions. Well, our last census, we were at 28,000 and some people. We're probably going to grow over 30,000 now, which considers us, getting in that medium kind of range for a city. But Desert Hot Springs still has that small town feel, and I still feel like I did when I was growing up here. You still know people, and you still have great organizations, and you still can call yourself a town and be able to get out and be a part of something. You've seen some of the holiday events that our staff has put together for us the last couple of years with the festivals and tree lighting and those things. And that's bringing our town back to what it was. We used to have a thing called Canadian American Days because a lot of Canadians would vacation here, and it was always an end of year kind of party we had in the middle of town. And so those are types of things that I want to continue to see as mayor of Desert Hot Springs. And again, Desert Hot Springs has a small town feel. Again, appreciate things. We try to...
I'm going to break formula here and speak off camera. I just think it's important. Someone asked once again, how can we support your re-election, Mr. Mattis? Can you go over that again?
Thank you, Michael. And if you didn't hear him, he was asking how can you support our re-election. If you want to financially support us, we appreciate that. And you can just send us an email or something to our social media about picking up a check from you. We don't have a way to process credit cards right now, but we will take a check, and we do need to we have to put that down on paper. So if you're looking at financially supporting us, we could always use that. Other ways to support us is, again, go on our website, endorse me. Just your endorsement alone is great support for me. You can put your name, your last initial. You don't have to put your whole initial or your whole name if you don't want to. You can go onto the website. At the same place you endorse me, you can be a volunteer and say you want to volunteer. There's not a lot to do this year because we can't get out and do a lot of meet and greets. We can't go door to door. But we will need some volunteers to hand out signs. We'll need some volunteers to put up some signs. We'll need volunteers to, maybe do some other things as you get closer to the November election. This year is going to be, we've got the month of August, we've got the month of September, and then the absentee ballots come out the first week of October. So we're targeting a lot of events. We're going to try to use these virtual meet and greets, 3, 4 more of them, and make sure we get all our message out. And if, again, you can support me financially by sending a message to us, and we'll find a way to get that check from you. 2, you can just endorse me, which is a huge, that'd be huge for us. Volunteer for us, and then if you want to have utilize your social media to push our stuff out, share it, like it, all that stuff helps out a lot. I've got about 1,400 followers on Facebook. We could always use another 1,000 or 2,000 of them. There's a lot of people who'll be out put in their absentee ballots this year. It's a presidential election, as we all know. So you're going to have you're going to have the federal stuff on there, and then you're going to have state stuff on there, and you're also going to have the local level. And we really want people to do their homework and see how we can make Desert Hot Springs even better than we've made it this last few years. Any other questions? I don't see everybody shaking their head no. So with that, Desert Hot Springs, again, www.vote.scottmattis.com is our website, which can get you a lot of your questions answered. My slogan this year, I think, is very, very proper: a realistic vision with real results. And again, I will never promise you something that I don't think I can accomplish or convince a city council to accomplish. I will never make statements that are so far out there just for you to elect me. because you think I could do that. I am going to put real messages out there and show you real results, which I hope I've proven to you as mayor of Desert Hot Springs and as a longtime city council member. I can't say thank you enough for tuning in tonight, taking an hour out of your day to listen to my message and to hopefully support me in this next election in November. You will receive your absentee ballot the first week of October, and you'll have a way to get that ballot back to the register to be counted on election day. And my wife and I look forward to that. Any last words?
No, I don't think so. Thank you guys so much for coming into our home.